Topographic pinch point, feudal gatekeeper power house. Orvette, a slow worm, short and broad of girth, and an alpine snake, all in one morning, basking on a rock wall. A hissing dinosaur, a dragon. Hissing Sid really didn't want to be rescued. Dragon, in all but name, on a garden terrace wall above the potager, sunning its reptilian blood. Later, hiding between door and stepped down into the cave to get away from rustic Chat, the cat, the mouse. I couldn't close the door without harm to it, so
Bonsoir, bienvenue dans notre émission.
Hooked it back onto its basking rock wall. Something about its dislocatable jaw, perhaps, makes its hiss so much more intimidating than the cat's, even though it's so much. Traditional cartoon snap trap should have scared them off, judging by the neurotic hyper nibbling of the wire bar immediately after they went after the food. Swallowed a spider to catch a fly, who swallowed a mouse. Much smaller. Fontaine, an adder or rare viper, the dark, constant 6 degrees centigrade interior that it was trying to escape off to, a hibernation spot perhaps, would have slowly sent it into a stupor and killed it. Did I stop it hunting mice or being got by them? Who would be the hunter and who would be the prey in that relationship? If the dinosaur had known all the facts, would it have wanted the prey? Raticide poisoned, they just desiccate mice and rats, so we're reliably informed by the packaging blurb, but they dry up without smell, so the sales patter goes. Mice and rats like a postage stamp-sized potager, a vegetable garden, buffet. Venturing out and about where rustic Chat cat roams is propensity to raticide enough. Most years there's the occasional mutilated carcass, a backbone ripped out of the ribeye. Poison not necessary if food is kept shut away in an old cooler box. But one year, which may or may not have had anything to do with inadvertently leaving dried pasta and boxes of passata insufficiently covered in a bain-marie, my long, fruitless property became these very... Only one thing for it. Pop to the shop and have something to eat. Predator's focus. Erudite eradication was exemplary. To avoid a messenger getting away and reporting the property, imprinting into the radar of generations of rats and mice. My whereabouts. Wolves aren't too prevalent to worry about leftovers after the prime cuts have been munched out by rustic Chat cat with 80s glam rock hair, this cat. Slightly reminiscent of that neighbour's thinning, hay, receding mullet. Have a good sweet rustic fellow and rustic Chat cat do have a passing resemblance to each other. Loop, wolves, chateau, plural, are tempting wolves, replacing tigers for keeping down the rampant peacock explosion, remonstrating ramparts with raucousness. Wolves are now everywhere in Europe, and a 30% cull rate is needed just to keep an equilibrium. The vulture can use the wolf, but it's an inversely exploitative relationship. The wolf can read the airborne communications of its spy cam, but both the reintroduced wolf can and the reintroduced vulture does suffer from genetic inbreeding mutations. Now, eastern France is certainly not northwestern Australia, but mouches is what you don't want spoiling your balmy summer days. Carcasses are bagged like poo, more so. Poo doesn't risk poisoning later curious domesticated prized chien. Fleas on carcasses, hurt to soft furnishings, worse, bites, rash, and rats have cannibalistic tendencies. The reputation of French city dwellers does suggest to us that, making generalisations, but most rural French do pick up dog poos and half-eaten mice wherever they see them. They have their own domestic pets that they don't want poisoned. Small communities know who's making themselves unpopular, leaving those skids. It's mainly those urban Parisians that don't give a merde. Mouches are flies. The proliferation of webs suggests spiders that catch the flies get their sticky sustenance aplenty. Spiders are our friends, surprisingly. Or perhaps our ugly mutant staff. A pregnant spider. But all the multitude offspring of the spawning spider wasn't enough to deter a nest of guepes within, extending a void in the lime mortar of the 2-foot solid stone walls over a lintel. Wasps were undermining the structural integrity of my grange, a big but hidden nest of them. When the paid holiday is factored in, guepes, I would say, are more unpopular than the COVID virus. A nest of wasps doesn't get you the right to stay at home for months and get paid. But solving COVID is a bit more difficult. It just requires a change or a bending of the safety laws and protocols. The nest of wasps in a cavity in the wall of its own making only really needed squirty, expanding foam fix the wasps and their void in one fell swoop. But how to appeal to the abeille, their cuddly country cousins, the bee? How to appeal to the bee and entice them from the ancient cherry tree into a waiting new hive, skillfully crafted in traditional form during downtime in design technology classes? All this wildlife gets rekindled from hibernation every springtime in the Alps. When the lime green shoots come out, so do the little critters, as they like to say in America. Pleased with this 55 metre squared of floor? Or happy campers' visits from local outdoor Olympic pool and slide campsite. Troweling and troweling to a polish. Next day, wet, soak and polish again. And again. And you get it. But the village fountain still hasn't been turned on due to frost risk in higher altitude villages, presumably. 20th of April, on the dot, whether COVID or not, the water to the village fountain will be turned back on. French rural life has its routines, with few exceptions, or deviations. While I could just continue to wait, I can never be that sure. I have only the word of the locals and don't have the lifetime of reference. I have to gather every 25 litre receptacle I can and gather water from the river at risk. At really rather some risk. It's a fair torrent, that icy cold meltwater from the glaciers that once we went skied on. Rather than wait for some religious day mid to late April, that when that's over something may or may not happen, for fountain water for my much anticipated breathable lime concrete floor slab. Will COVID delay the occasion? Will the whole prefecture protecting persons prevent crop irrigation? Because it's both urban and rural prefecture. This is Chambry. But no, I needn't have worried. I needn't have contaminated all my 25-litre cans with algae. Even in those glaciers and those pristine meltwaters, there's algae that multiplies, it warms up. But my French prefecture of Chambry sees through the hypocrisy of COVID and applies the age-old regime of the pay in the countryside. The countryside routines are paramount. Might have something to do with the political power of the farmer, you don't know. Or my forward planning of lime mortar of the right grade, show, gravel of the right shade. I wanted a beige floor slab to be on show. My lime floor on show. Show on show. A small thing like the basics of hydration wasn't going to keep me back. Off down by the riverside, which can be a fruity place, according to popular cultural references, I met, or rather, down by the riverside, I got curious looks from a new riverside enclave of locals. Now, there is a story to expand upon about how the animals of the Alps interact with each other. The wolf and the vulture have been encapsulated in celluloid already, but there's less venerable fauna that feel the need to be represented. They told me, in good old animal magic, Johnny Morris fashion. But it does seem comical now to refer back, almost unbelievable. Everyone had been on.
Le véritable amour est l'infini, éternel. Mais parfois il se fatigue aussi. Mais vous inquiétez pas parce que je suis là. Indra, la más grande hipnotizadora del mundo mundial de la televisión, tiene la solución. Mon grand pouvoir, c'est de faire revivre l'amour que... Clara, música.
In the loneliness of COVID, I spoke to Orvet, the slow worm, each midday lunchtime on its basking range, along the grey top of the granite dry stone wall at 500-metre altitude in the Alps. I didn't waste the harvest of snails that congregated under my electric meter that I'd recently had installed. I cooked my escargot with butter and herbs, but I fed them to Orvet raw, as she or he perhaps preferred them. And she told me of the story of the house of hundreds of years of feudalism, Animal Farm in verse, where things like me that choose to identify as two legs, choose to see a Les Miserables revolution that was usurped in all but hypocrisy, in all rural interactions, animal, vegetable and mineral. Le Chat, the cat, ruled from the chateau. Rats were outnumbered by the mice, recognised that they had to periodically make sacrifice of their own kind, but the mice, they herded as fodder for the chat of the chateau. Invertebrates powerless to help, just as they were powerless to escape the curved back edge of Orvet's teeth. Arachnids farmed the space between air, land and sea. Le Chat had learnt the Orvet dinosaur hissing language kinesthetically through many a standoff, in what should have been a one-sided fight, but taken aback by the depth of the ages. They both considered the two legs fools for clinging to the illusion of reason, that those of the feudal chateau had changed at all. From the revolution and the terror and the purge that they imposed was still there. The corvée existant, but just by a different name. Tight profit margins given over in favour of risque returns of arms-dealing governments and colonial Leroy Merlin magic in far-flung pseudo-colonial lands